I heard about a couple of your pranks back in the day.
Yeah, there were a
Um,
few.
you sound like you would have been a hell of a teammate. I
It
had
was
I
fun.
had a bunch of really good ones in my short career, but
Yeah.
sounds like you would have been right up there at the top, man.
I
And
heard the same about you, man. A lot of people speak really highly of you. I know we were in the same draft class and all that, so it's
yeah,
crazy.
and look at
I,
us now.
that's what I was gonna say. This is gonna be my first question. I mean, now I'm a podcaster. You're an NFL head coach. Where did it go wrong for you? You could have been a podcaster.
I can tell you that somewhere along the way I did go wrong to have. I think you're probably sleeping a little bit better than me these days.
Welcome to the Green Light Pod. I'm your host, Chris Long. Got a Vikings guest today for you, Kevin O'Connell. I love the guy. One interview with him, 15, 20 minutes, some technical difficulties on our end that we overcame thanks to our great producer, Reed, Cowboy Reed. Had a great conversation with him. This is a great ball coach, won a lot of close games last year. Had to make some hard decisions this offseason. We talk about that. But I think the coolest thing about this guy is he's 38 years old. I think he's 38. He's my age. Same draft class. And I had never met the dude, but I've heard great things about him. And it kind of makes you wonder what you're doing with your life when a guy from your draft class is the head coach of a great football team like the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm doing a podcast. But thanks for watching it, locals and others. Subscribe, like, tell people about the pod. The question today is, and I bet the Vikings win total every single year. It's going to be hard for me to bet the under now that I'm friends with my buddy Kevin O'Connell. Vikings, 8.5 wins, over or under? Not saying you have to bet it, but comment and let us know what you think. Coach, last year I've been on teams like this where just every game's close and they end up breaking your way. Some years they don't. What do you think was the separating factor for y'all? I know coaches get up there and they show guys like, hey, penalties do this, turnovers do this. If we take care of the ball, this happens. But what do you think it was about your team that allowed you to win those close games?
Yeah, so Chris, when I really came in here early on, I was coming off of our Super Bowl year in LA where we won some close games. I mean,
Yep.
it really wasn't an easy road. We had to deal with adversity. Didn't win a game that year in the month of November. So the first thing I wanted to do was just kind of assess the overall, football mindset to just winning in general. And
Yeah.
this team had done some good things. I felt strongly about the potential leadership on the roster on both sides of the ball, really. But when I dove into it, I saw a team that, for whatever reason, and I do believe, and you know this, that some years it can go your way, some years it tends to be harder than others when it comes to winning close games. But I do believe as a coach, it's my responsibility to make it part of our football philosophy and to put these guys in positions so that with the work we do long before we ever get in those moments, at the very least, my job is to force our guys to feel some of those moments and some of those stressful moments by how we talk about what we're going to do in those moments, but then how we practice and coach off of those moments as they arise, both not only for our team, but we do it for the whole league throughout the whole season. Anything we can learn from and apply to our clock management, apply to our decision making, how we go about moving the football with or without timeouts, with or without a ton of time. So ultimately what I want is, our players in those moments to just have a quieted mind and just be ready to go play and not worry and not think about the what ifs or have any sort of confusion in their minds. And we were able to kind of have some early success with that, early buy-in, because the team had been in quite a few one-score games that had gone the other way previously. So in my thought, it was if we could just improve a little bit at the end of the first half and then be just much better at the end of games, finishing those out. If we did it once, maybe there was a mindset of we could do it twice and three times, and inevitably it just kept coming up and we found ways to do it.
Yeah, I was just talking to Patrick Peterson about this, and I mentioned the same thing, and he said, "Well, coach was real good at situational football. And, I think that's a big key. Obviously, one of my favorite games to watch last year that you guys played in was the Indy game.
Yeah.
And I know for a while it probably wasn't a lot of fun to coach that game, but I'm wondering what you said to the guys at halftime, what you had up your sleeve for that. Because 28-3, I don't know what Bill said. I don't know what he told us at the half. I don't remember. Do you remember what you said to those guys at the end of that game,
Well,
or in the middle of that game?
yeah, I'm glad you brought up Pat because I just remember walking in the locker room, and as I was getting ready to maybe not say very many pleasant things to my coaching staff, I remember just overhearing right over my left shoulder, Pat P yell down to Kirk, "All we got to do is score 5 times." And I was like, and in my mind, I'm like, pissed off. You're saying to yourself, "Oh shit, we got to do a hell of a lot more than that." But then when I sat with the coaches and I really looked at kind of what did we attempted to do, and just the fact that we flat out just were beating ourselves, not taking anything away from the first half that the Colts had, but it was just about checking all of where we were at from a standpoint of our mindset, and just saying, hey, we can't score 5 times without scoring once, and when we score that first time, it's probably the way our systems are built, especially offensively. There's normally plays off of some things that we can get to. I just knew that the momentum would swing back our way. We would just be fighting against time, being such a significant margin that we had to overcome. And when we scored that first time, there was zero kind of like it was really like such a workman approach from our team of there's one, then we got to stop, there's two, then we got to stop, there's three. And then the greatest thing about it, Chris, is adversity wasn't over at that point. We had a fourth quarter turnover. We picked up a fumble. We also picked up a fumble for a touchdown that was ruled that they stopped the forward progress, and it wasn't even a turnover, which was 2 for that day. So there was every excuse in the world, Chris, you can imagine, of us saying, you know what, it's just our day. We'll rally the troops and we'll come back next weekend and try to win the division. It just made it that much sweeter just to see a lot of the things that you preach from a culture standpoint, a football philosophy standpoint. No greater example of it all coming together than that day. And it just so happened to be the day we won the division. So it means the world to me. And I'm glad you noticed how hard that is to do, because a lot of things got to have to go right. But as I told our team, there's still going to be adversity. And all gains are significant gains when you're down by that much. There's no such thing. A gain of 4 on a first down inside zone play is a positive. A third down conversion on a 3rd and 5 at midfield, it might not put a point on the board, but it's a positive, and it's momentum, and it's one more chance for us to potentially apply pressure to the other side and then get that game close. And then once we got it close, we knew the advantage was on our side with our experience leading up to that moment.
So you made a lot of moves in the offseason. Obviously you love these guys that you had to make decisions on. Big Z, one of the best. Thielen, like all these guys. Eric Kendricks played with Mike in Philly. Great people, great players. What was the hardest decision you had to make? I know you probably say, hey, they were all tough, but I know when you're putting together a football team, there are some positions that are really important. What were the toughest decisions you had to make this offseason?
Yeah, first and foremost, we don't win. Me as a first-year head coach, I will never use the word I. We don't win those 13 games without every single name that you just mentioned and a whole bunch of others. The worst part of this job is the fact that it's hard to manage an organization and a roster from a standpoint of how the Minnesota Vikings have to do it. We can't do it a year at a time. If we do it a year at a time, we will be behind in the end as we try to build something sustainable. So there were a lot of hard conversations, but Chris, I can tell you the only way I know how to deal with them is to treat each individual one as its own, with the amount of respect and admiration that all those players deserved, to try to communicate all the way down to when, if there was a final decision made, if there was some collaborating with that player of if we could do anything to help those guys. And me personally, I can think back to having conversations, with Adam Thielen and with some of our other guys, even all the way up until Dalvin Cook recently, about, those guys asking me what I thought they should do or where even they were no longer Vikings, but they still cared for my opinion, because I told them I will forever cherish the relationships I had with those players, and ultimately that has been and will continue to be the hardest part of my job as a former player, without nearly the success of a lot of the players you just named. It was always hard to leave that locker room, leave my guys in there. And when you put together something where culture matters and the locker room matters, and I have so much respect for, the relationships our players form with each other, that's the first thing I always think about is just how hard it's going to be to show up to work for not only myself, but a lot of our guys without some of those great players that have done so much for this organization, albeit for a year like Za'Darius or Adam Thielen, who had played here 10 years and, what an unbelievable story and left his mark. Dalvin Cook, Eric Kendrick. The list goes on and on. And, every example of our team success, Chris, last year, I can attribute it to, each one of those guys and what they were willing to, commit to being a part of in my first year doing this. And there's nothing I'm more proud of than the fact that that year we had will always be with me, and those players will always carry the utmost respect that I have for them because of what they were willing to do for me.
The one guy I was worried about, because he's one of my favorite players to watch, is Hunter, and there were rumors what's going to happen with him and the whole thing, and I wondered if he was going to get offloaded, another tough decision, but you guys bring him back, and it's kind of an abnormal kind of circumstance. I feel like the contract is one you don't see a lot in that range for that kind of player, the length of the deal, that sort of thing. What were you guys thinking in getting it done that way, and how important is he to your defense?
Very important. A player of Danielle's caliber. I think, one of the things that, I'm really proud of through this whole thing is the way Danielle, being the great player he's been for so long and will continue to be. But, Chris, there was a lot of conversations between him and I throughout the process, especially as it got down towards the end where I felt like him and I grew really close through this. It's amazing what being honest and just being willing to be vulnerable and kind of talk things out and try to find a workable solution where maybe I don't have the complete authority to just, meet with Danielle and let's figure this out together. He's got representation. We have, a great GM and a lot of support on the personnel side that really handle those things. But what I was most excited about was just the fact that right now when, I see Danielle Hunter walking the halls of this building, it fires me up, and he's excited to be here. And I think he's going to have one of the best years that he's had in his career, which is saying something considering the career he's had up until this point. And as I told him, although you might be on a one-year deal, I want you to have the mindset that you're going to give me every opportunity to try to have more of those conversations again after you go, you go wreck the game for the other side a whole heck of a lot this year. I'm going to be scratching and clawing to try to see if we can make this thing go for a heck of a lot longer than just 17 plus more games, if you know what I mean. So,
no question.
Yeah.
With the preseason, I always wanted to ask a coach. I figured I'd wait till I talked to a coach from my draft class. This is a hard-hitting question. How do y'all know who the hell's going to play week to week? Because, we're always in the dark, and preseason has changed from when we were rookies.
Yeah.
The whole setup is different. So I'm wondering, if you're going to play Bill, your old coach, in week 3 of the preseason, maybe he's not the right example, but are you going to have a conversation with another coach and be like, hey, you guys running the twos through the first quarter, the second quarter type of thing? Because I think it's really important to know, not only the guys you want to get work, but who you want them to get work against. How's that dance happen in the preseason with head coaches?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sometimes there's conversations, sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's, hey, let's just compete and have fun. And I tend to, Chris, because the joint practices are so important, just having that slight, control over, the extreme circumstances of competing against another organization, doing it on the practice field with, your ones versus their ones, and being able to work particular situations, third down, red zone, 2-minute. I think it allows you to get the most out of those days, those reps. And then what it does, it also keeps your team fresh because you can go 2 days hard in a row, 2.5 hours competing. And then if those guys aren't playing, they can recover and then do it again and again. And then as the grind of training camp that you may remember used to set in, player like yourself is shifting your mindset towards, yeah, shoot, I got to play 2.5 quarters in this third preseason game. But really what I'm thinking about is, like, for the Minnesota Vikings, September 10th against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think there's always been a confliction there for players, especially of your caliber, as you get into your career. From a sports sports science standpoint, I can lay out a plan that, regardless of circumstance, will be effective to get our guys ready to play that we need to get ready to play. And then the best part about it is the player development of our 2s and 3s. And they literally come out of training camp sometimes with, 30, 40, 50 more reps than they would have at another organization that doesn't, take advantage of the opportunity of resting some of their guys and playing their development guys. Or maybe it's somebody, a veteran, trying to make the team show what he can do. But as far as the communication with other coaches, if I call somebody and they say, hey, we're playing our 1s for 3 quarters, we're having a throwback game back to when you and I first came in the league. That's not going to change my mindset. It'll just be a heck of a challenge for our 2s and 3s to go compete. And, you'd love to win every game you ever have your team, suit up for. But inevitably, we're looking for marginal gains and improvement of a daily variety of our football team leading into September 10th.
Jordan Addison, talented guy. You've got probably the best receiver in football if I'm going by Madden ratings. 99 overall, and Justin Jefferson. Two-part question. How's Jordan doing, and how's Justin doing being the vet, right? Because Thielen leaves, and now this guy who's otherworldly, he was just a rookie, he's got to be the guy to pass on the knowledge. How's that relationship, and how is Jordan doing?
Yeah, Jordan's doing fantastic. Everything that, I spent a lot of time in the draft process really watching him previously at Pittsburgh and then at USC, watching him kind of play a different style of offense, different route tree. But what I learned quickly about him was the things that mean a lot to me: body control, change of direction, your ability to play fast but still have a level of explosiveness mixed with a smooth factor that allows you to be totally and completely in control of all the things that we're asking you to do. Catches the football really well, and ultimately is he's a quiet guy, but when he steps in between the white lines, you can tell there's nothing he loves more than playing football, which just so happens to be very similar. Maybe not the quiet guy part, but those types of attributes and makeup of stepping in the white lines and competing like crazy. That's Justin Jefferson in its purest form. I do believe you're probably accurate on your assessment of where he sits in professional football, not just in the Madden rankings, but I tend to agree with you. But I think the coolest thing for me has been watching Justin assume an Adam Thielen-like role that relationship he had with Adam, and I give Adam so much credit. And really, Adam deserves a ton of credit for how successful JJ's been from the jump, because every single meeting, Adam was right next to JJ in that meeting room. Those two guys talking about their craft, installing plays. Hey, coach, if Justin's running that route and I'm over here on this one, are you okay if I do it like this? And maybe get a little more depth, or maybe speed it up a little bit, whatever it is. And we had that collaboration kind of in year one that helped our offense be what it was. Well, now I have Justin Jefferson sitting next to Jordan Addison every single day. And I'm already seeing JJ paying it forward like Adam did for him. And I'm sure Adam had, whether it was Diggs or anybody else that was here early on in Adam's career, or at least during his tenure here. I think that I know I owe a lot to Keenan McCardell, our receiver coach, having a 17-year former really baller at the position, running that room with the command he has, but yet, nobody loves his players more than Keenan McCardell. So to have that type of role model for those guys, coaching them, but then also Justin's experience with Adam now pouring over to Jordan. Don't forget about KJ Osborne. He's kind of, he's such an important part of what we do. And then we've got some really nice pieces also in the room from a young guy standpoint to guys like Brandon Powell, Jalen Reagor, and Jalen Naylor, all of which are competing like crazy to not only make our team, but to make that receiver group one of the best in the NFL, which I feel very strongly about.
Coach, I appreciate the time. Wishing you all the best of luck, and take care of Tyler for me, all right, man?
Yeah. We haven't had any vets pull the trick you did with the DBs, hiding the cars across the street. I'm sure you've told that story before.
They wouldn't know what hit them.
If you haven't told it, you're great listeners. They need to hear that story because Tyler had me rolling hearing that one.
Yeah, we've gone to the well a few times on that one. They know what you're talking about.
I bet.
All right. Well, Coach, I appreciate the time, man. Best of luck. Hope you come back after a big win, all right?
Yeah, thanks, man. Always been a big fan of you, your brother, your pops, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Football royalty in our league, man.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, keep kicking ass, Coach.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you.